a lot of times we get advice on areas as a startup or as an entrepreneur that isn't as applicable to the problem that I'm trying to deal with now, which again is typically people, strategy, execution, and cash flow in 3-month increments, not 3-year increments. Don't worry about how you're going to look or how you want people to perceive you to look in 3 years. Worry about who you need to be right now to cut through the noise, to have people to really want to connect with you and build your brand.
What is up, action takers? Welcome back to the After Hours Entrepreneur. Mark Savant in the house. This show is your guide to building out 6-figure years in your business. Today, we're joined by Justin Croxton, one of the founders over at Propellant Media, a modern digital agency centered on geofencing marketing. There's a lot of great stuff here in this episode. We're going to start by really talking about how Justin built up his business, a little bit of his story. We're going to talk about when it's right to broaden versus when it's time to niche down. We're going to talk about how to run and set up a multi-platform marketing campaign. We're going to talk about how much time you need to budget to a marketing campaign. We're going to talk about how much money you need to budget towards your marketing campaign. You ready to listen, learn, and take action? You're in the right place. DJ, run the tape. Justin, what's up? Welcome to the show.
How's it going, sir?
Justin, I am rocking and rolling. I'm excited to be here, brother. I love what you're doing. And I think it's going to be highly, highly relevant to all the entrepreneurs out here growing businesses. So let me start by asking you a question. Inc. has listed you as one of the fastest growing companies 3 years in a row. First off, congratulations. That's awesome.
I appreciate that, man. Appreciate that.
What do you credit that to? Why do you think that your business, Propellant Media, is growing so fast?
You know, I think there's a lot of agencies out there. I mean, we're advertising technology company effectively. And there's so many organizations out there that don't put forth kind of like a unique, differentiated strategy. And for us, there's been a few things that's worked to our advantage. One, it has been the fact that we've really sort of hyper-focused on one area around programmatic display, or in this case, geofencing marketing and OTT advertising. We do a lot of the other, paid search and paid social and all those other things. But, when you're a firm, in the agency space, you have to find a way to differentiate yourself. And, geofencing was one of those things. But I'm sure everybody will say this next thing, but the people, without a doubt. Like, you cannot grow an organization without good people. They say there's 4 things that really helps an organization grow. It's people, strategy, execution, and cash flow. The people is number 1 all the time. And so between those things and us practicing what we preach, we do our own marketing and content. And so that over the last 5 years, that really is what made the difference for us. And we've been just very blessed and very fortunate during that period of time.
Brilliant. And it's certainly working. We got some juice. We got some momentum going. The thing that kind of strikes me, and something that I talk about a lot with clients, coaching clients, my group, basically anyone that I can, people probably need to tell me to shut up. I can't stop talking about it, is finding that secret sauce, is niching down, being super clear on what you do. And I know, at least for me and for many young businesses, we're kind of like, if you've got money, we've got something for you,
Right.
When you started Propellant Media, did you start niche down with Propellant Media, or did you start more broad and then focus in on your niche as you went along?
We 100% started broad, and it was not the right strategy. It was not the right play. And, it was even funny, like before Propellant Media, there was another agency that I was running sort of as a one-man shop when I lived up in New York and Hoboken, New Jersey. And it was, again, a one-man shop, but we were doing a lot of different things. And as you can imagine, when you're trying to scale a company, you have to niche down, at least initially, because there's so much, how do I say it? There's so much competition that's out there. There are folks that does so many of the same things that you might do, whereas you're trying to make the argument of why your organization, your product, or your mousetrap is better than everybody else's. You can't really do that if you are just kind of starting out and you're saying that you do paid search, paid social, Facebook advertising, geofencing, all these other things. And so for us, what we tried to do is say, all right, at the very least, we will market, geofencing as the thing that we're really good at. We'll showcase all of our case studies in that space. We'll make the site look and feel like we are the thought leader, which, I'd argue that we are in geofencing. And if people come to us and they still need assistance in other areas, like Facebook and paid search and things of that nature, all power to you. HubSpot marketing, all power to you. We'll assist in that regard. But you have to have a get in. You have to have the thing that's going to pull people in, number one. But number two, the other thing that a lot of people don't think about is you actually have to be in a market where your product or service is actually in demand. Don't try to swim up. Don't try to swim upstream in a market where people really aren't necessarily looking for that thing. You have to know or have a sense that there's actual demand for that thing that you're niching down to. There's a lot of great cool tools that gives you that context. One great tool is Google Keyword Planner. You can see kind of what keywords people are typing in and searching for effectively. Particularly not just if you're established business and you still are just trying to micro niche down to a couple typical services. I mean, that's totally understandable as well. But doing your research, knowing that within the thing that you're going to niche down to, being able to hyper focus to that, and knowing there's a market is absolutely important. Absolutely important.
Yeah, I very much strongly agree. And I think at the same time, that's part of the benefit of starting a little bit more broad, because you get to understand who you can serve best, what you can do best. The key, though, is figuring out how quickly can I get to that zone of genius. Right.
Well, so Mark, to your point, I mean, I certainly don't have regrets in starting off broad because they're life learned lessons, right? I think, as entrepreneurs, we're trying to place bets in certain areas that's going to get us to scale faster. And I even, look at Propellant Media, when we were first founded, we were, pounding the pavement, trying to build relationships with, folks in the higher education space. But, we were new. And so as you can imagine, trying to build those relationships and being in an area where there's a lot of bureaucracy and it takes time to get paid and all that, you're talking about net 30, net 60, net 90-day increments. You're like, this is, this is too much. And so as we continue to grow, the point that I wanted to make is, as we started doing our own marketing, our own SEO, there were people who, direct brands that were reaching out to us, from a geofencing perspective. But then we also had other agencies wanting to white label our solutions. And so to your point, the only way you know that is you getting into market, testing a few things out. You're still trying to place bets on what you think is going to, generate cash flow and revenue and where you can bring the best value to your clients. But we saw this other white label arm of the business started to grow. And we were like, well, I'm not going to turn that off. And beforehand, we had no idea that part of the business was going to grow. So we said, we're going to double down on that area, still service our direct brands, lead with geofencing, and then just to find the best way to service our clients so that they're getting the best results ultimately. And that was it.
Yeah, I mean, we live to serve. We live to serve. And I was talking to Chris Doe about this just the other day. Find that zone of genius, really lean into it. But if someone's willing to pay you an absurd amount of money for these other services, just say, sure, I'll take the money, and then I'll hire someone that is an expert, and to your point, white label it. Then you can provide an amazing experience all in-house and really make that client feel like you're in it for them,
Absolutely. I mean, and that's, to your point, and you don't know that the opportunity is there until someone says, hey, I'd like to, do business with you guys. And you start to see the pattern. If you see the pattern as an entrepreneur, like, you have to listen for that pattern. And you have to double down on that pattern. Like, don't say, oh, I don't want that kind of money. I want this kind of money is money. Business is business. So that's a really important lesson I had to learn. And, we've been very fortunate over the past 5-6+ years.
Yeah, it's, when you got to put food on the table and clothes on the kids' back and a happy wife, happy life. You got to find the lane. It's very easy, I think, to be stubborn and no, this is what I want to do.
Right.
But the market is the market, right? It's not going to lie. You need to go where. But at the same time, being honest to yourself and what you want out of life too. Right.
You have to have your own personal vision. for what you want. Certainly don't go against your vision, obviously, and also to your point. But, if you see there's an opportunity, you got to listen to your heart and your soul and strike when you see there's an opportunity and go for it.
Yeah, well said. I want to back up your story a little bit more, Justin, because I just find people's stories of founding their businesses just so compelling. You really got started professionally in commercial real estate up in New York, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
You decided at one point what was that? So what was the point where you decided this isn't working? I want to do something else.
Yeah.
A and B, what did your wife say when you said you wanted to go to school for your master's? So two-part question here.
Sure. So it was back in 2009 when I started to get the itch that I wanted to go back to business school. I mean, I graduated from Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, back in 2005. And I always wanted to get into commercial real estate, wanted to get into, commercial real estate for a long period of time. But I said to myself, you know what? If I could have a client anywhere in the world, digital marketing would afford me that opportunity. Whereas I felt like there was a ceiling for myself working in commercial real estate. Like I was working for Jones Lang LaSalle, one of the largest commercial real estate firms in the world. And it was an incredible experience, made good money. It was one of the best experiences I could have ever imagined. But I also knew that I wanted to get into digital marketing and I wanted to go back to business school. I thought that I needed to have the degree in order to, spread my wings, if you will. And so started to apply to different schools, got accepted, ended up going to NYU Stern School of Business in New York. But, during the period of time in which I was applying and, knowing I was doing relatively well at Jones Lang LaSalle, had to have some of those tough conversations with the wife. And she was like, you want to give up this for that? What's going on here? It was a tough discussion. I mean, she's an absolute sweetheart, completely understanding. And, we actually we got married in 2011. And mind you, I made the shift in my mind that I made the shift in my mind that I wanted to go back to business school in 2010. So we got married in not 2011, we got married in 2010. I went to business school in 2011. So this was sort of the beginning of our relationship. And so it was an easier discussion, but one I'm sure she was hesitant, but, gave me full support, during that path. And, I was, both very grateful, not so much just to her, but the partnership that we've, cultivated over that period of time. And, business school was great. I, ended up being the speaker for my graduation at Radio City Music Hall in 2013 when I graduated. And so those are just life lessons that I've gained, the confidence, the skill set, all those things. And so, it was a little bit of a dance, but, I can say that I'm still glad that I went back to business school.
Yeah, how did you land that speaking position? Like, was there anything you did? Did you network your butt off? How did you get there?
So, I did pretty well once I graduated from Stern. But in addition to that, there was an opportunity for, students to try to, how do I say this, become the speaker for your graduating class. And there was I forget, this about maybe 400 or 500 people from my 400 people for my graduating class. And there was 20 folks that decided that they wanted to, try out to be the speaker. And I'll rewind 2 years beforehand, the first class that I was in at Stern, there was about 60 other students and I froze. There was an opportunity for me to speak in front of the class and I froze. Like I was just so nervous. I just wasn't I wasn't there. I wasn't there mentally. Whereas everybody else is getting up, blah, 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 saying whatever's on their mind. And I'm getting up in front of everyone and I'm like, I don't know what to say. And I said to myself, this is going to be the thing that I work on while I'm here in business school. It's one thing to kind of know hard skills, but the soft skills are what really get you promoted in life. And it's something that I just continued to work on. And so
what were you doing? Like, was there something you did daily or I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. And one of the key things he talks about is get comfortable with discomfort. So most people, when they get up front and they freeze, they're like, I'm never doing this again. So what did you do?
It was the getting comfort with discomfort and putting yourself in places where you can, work on the thing that you're having the most struggle in. And for me, that was being authentic within myself and speaking in front of a large audience and knowing that I have value to say from what I'm going to say. And there are still times where you get nervous, but you do it enough times to where you're able to then say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to die. What I say matters, and the value that I believe that I can bring to this audience is going to be authentic and make an impact. And I just kind of got to a point where the more I did that in front of my classmates, the more I knew that, I had a place, within my class, within the class that I was in. And, fast forward to 2013, when there was an opportunity to, apply for this speaking opportunity to speak in front of the class, I said, this is what I've been building towards. This is it. This is the moment. If I don't get it, so be it. But if I get it, holy cow, I got to deliver on the day when I do got to give the speech. And you can find it if you do a search for Justin Croxton on YouTube. You'll find the Justin Croxton NYU speech. You'll find it. But that's when I applied. I prepped. I did the speech. I wrote it out. Kind of my experience at Stern. Wrote it out. There were 20 other students, and I got picked. And that was it. And it was just one of the biggest, most thrilling accomplishments that I had outside of graduating from Stern. And that was it.
That's a great story, Justin. Props to you. I'm reading Atomic Habits by James Cleary. And in one of the sections, he mentions that fear and excitement, they have the same dopamine release.
Yes.
It's the same release. And it makes sense to me because once I started putting myself outside my comfort zone, whether that's speaking on stage, presenting to new people, trying new equipment, new selling, whatever, it almost becomes an addiction. I want to keep trying this difficult thing.
Right. No, it's so true. It's like you keep challenging yourself to be your best self in that area. Cause it's like, man, I did it before. I can do it better and get better and better at it. It's like, oh, I got that fear, but I'm going to deal with it this time. I'm going to deal with it again this time. And so I'm with you on that 100%, Mark, 100%.
But you have to take that first step. You have to try that new thing. You have to get uncomfortable. You have to. Yeah, you have to. And I just want to say one other thing. When it comes to speaking and, a lot of folks, I sort of juxtapose that to, content for folks' website, and specifically a lot of the entrepreneurs that are out there. There's a lot of people that decide that they don't want to do webinars or don't want to speak. And I challenge you to, get out of your comfort zone and do more webinars, do things that put you out there so you can have that content for your site. I mean, obviously, Mark, you're a stud when it comes to that stuff, but when it comes to competition, people do business with people at the end of the day. They don't do business with corporations. And the way that you're able to sift through that noise and have someone build a personal connection with you is by way of your webinars, by way of you speaking, by way of people getting a sense of who you are as a human being. Whether you're a one-man shop, 200-person shop, it does not matter. Webinars, doing more speaking engagement, having that content recorded is what gives people sort of a lens into who you are as a human being and how you can bring value to them. You have to do it. Otherwise, and you're looking at two websites, like, yeah, you may have more services in one versus the other, or more case studies in one versus the other, but it's the human being that allows people to really get to know, okay, I think I want to talk to this person because I got a sense of who they are as an individual, how they think, their strategy, their philosophy, how they bring value. I challenge everybody that's listening, really focus on that. It's going to make a difference long-term for yourselves. But yeah, I mean, I think if you walk away from this episode with one thing, that's it, right? Create more content, because I think that a lot of business owners, we're try to build a business where they're not the face of the business, right? It's the business and I'm in the background. But does that make it harder from a marketing standpoint to sell your company, to sell your business, to sell your products and services?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I can share a similar story with Propellant Media because the agency that I run, because I was in a similar boat. And I'll be even more authentic about it. There's not a lot of, in relationship to the entire ethos of digital agency owners, there's not a lot of agency owners that are African-American led effectively. And there was a period back in 2016 to 2017 where I was nervous about like really becoming the face of Propellant Media. I didn't feel like I was going to be accepted. I thought that people would say no to me in relationship to other agencies, whether because it was my skin color or because of the site. And they said, oh, I don't know if this is the site, if these are folks I want to go with. But I just kind of got to the point where I said, I can't live my life that way. If you want to do business with us, then so be it. But similar to the NYU Stern experience, get out of your space of fear and discomfort and put yourself out there and show that you can make a difference. Now, the point that you made around, feeling like you're a one-man shop and people thinking that you're a one-man shop, people believe that strategy, and this is really important for entrepreneurs out there. People think strategy is like a 5-year thing, for sort of that startup or that, that growth organization. And it's by far not, not even close. Strategy, you have to look at strategy in 3-month increments. And the reason why I say that is people try to, pigeonhole their company in terms of, this is this one-man shop. I don't want to be the face of the organization, or people are going to think I'm a one-man shop. You got to get out of that. You got to remember, people do business with people. And just because in those first 3 months or 6 months or year or 2 years, people think that you are the face of the organization doesn't mean that that has to be the same thing over the next year or 2 years afterwards. You got to start somewhere. And if you do, start with you as the individual and like, yo, I'm solid and I still got a team behind me effectively. And then as you get bigger, you can pull away as you being the frontward facing individual of the company. And I mean, honestly, I'm still the front facing of the organization, but we still grow. People still want to do business with us. And so that's just a really important distinction I want everybody to really, take heed to.
I honestly, Justin, I don't know that I've ever heard anyone say that before, but that is spot on. That's a mic drop right there. Is don't worry about 5 years, worry about 3 months. I mean, it does remind me a little bit of Patrick Bet-David's book, Your Next 5 Moves, right? And you want to be planning for the future, but mistakes are made when you take advice out of context, right?
Yeah.
And, I just think back to me and my journey. I'd listened to a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk, who's awesome. However, some of those routines, stories, pieces of advice he's giving are for Fortune 500 companies. They're not for the small business.
Yeah.
And if you try to apply, a piece of advice he's given to Coca-Cola, it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's going to be challenging. I mean, like you said, Gary, obviously Gary is Gary, so it's amazing. But a lot of times we get advice on areas as a startup or as an entrepreneur that isn't as applicable to the problem that I'm trying to deal with now, which again is typically people, strategy, execution, and cash flow in 3-month increments, not 3-year increments. Don't worry about how you're going to look or how you want people to perceive you to look in 3 years. Worry about who you need to be right now to cut through the noise, to have people to really want to connect with you and build your brand.
100%. And this really actually is a great marketing tactic too, right? You can't start running a marketing campaign for where you want to be 5 years from now, right? Because you probably want to set a specific goal day one and then come back to it 1, 2, 3 months in the future to see how things went, right?
Same concept. I mean, you're not going to, create a campaign and, set it and forget it. And then 3 months, like a year later say, oh, I wonder how that campaign went. You're going to be looking at it in many cases. You're going to be looking at that campaign on a weekly basis, usually, if not, at the very least on a monthly. And the same thing holds true in how you, evaluate your enterprise, whether it be your cash flow, your people, different evaluations, things of that nature. It's the same thing, particularly for us in that startup phase where we're not, doing, 9 figures, maybe you're doing 8 figures, 7 figures, or even doing hundreds of thousands. You got to look at it in that space though, for sure.
So what do you think the minimum amount of time is? If I'm looking to roll out a marketing campaign, this is a common problem, I think, with entrepreneurs, especially young entrepreneurs. You say, hey, I got $100. I'm going to throw it at a Facebook ad. It didn't work. Ads don't work. How long do we need to actually roll out an ad campaign to actually get any sort of reasonable intel back?
Yeah, your campaigns, some people will say 3 months, but I really try to go for 4, maybe 6. But I think you can get some decent intelligence if you have a team that's really, executing and optimizing campaigns. I think a 4 month time frame is pretty good because then you're not always. I mean, what if you started a campaign in November and then you're dealing with sort of that seasonality in December and January, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, the numbers look a little weird. So 4 months is a good time frame in my opinion. And I've had many cases where folks like, oh, I only have a couple bucks, and I tell people 9 times out of 10, if you don't have enough money to spend, which in my opinion, depending on the size of the organization, you should be spending at least 1,000 to 1,500, really 1,500 a month. If you're going to, when I say, per month, I mean, per channel. So Facebook, 1,500, Google Ads, 1,500. And again, that all is predicated on the geographic set, what your objectives are, what your goals are. Are you trying to generate leads, or are you trying to generate phone calls? I mean, what's the KPI that you're really honing in on, key performance indicator that you're trying to hone in on? But it can't be $100 campaign, and it has to be at least 4 months for sure, because that way you can have that intelligence to then scale your company
Yeah.
in that moment.
Obviously it's really important that you actually have something to sell on the back end. I don't want to make it sound like super obvious, but you don't want to run ads unless you have something to gauge the return on, right? Because
Right,
if
right.
one ad lands and that's a $50,000 client, well, you can allocate a larger budget to that, right? So
Right, right, right. And to your point, that's why, being able to set up conversion tracking and, having, being able to say, okay, well, I know that this ad, produced this particular conversion or these lead gen forms, or for my paid advertising, I know that these keywords are the ones that generated phone calls or leads when I set up conversion tracking. Like setting up the data is part of the process. And so hopefully that's not too over the heads of anyone that's out there, but if you're trying to hold people accountable, that's how you hold any agency accountable, is by ensuring that they have set up some level of conversion tracking for you. Doesn't have to be across all digital channels, but at the very least, if you're doing paid search, paid social, even SEO to an extent, you are tracking phone calls, whatever your KPI is, phone calls, leads, revenue that's being generated from an e-commerce store, all that's being set up, or else you're sort of going in the dark, unless the focus truly is, I'm just trying to drive traffic and awareness, which I get that, to a large extent as well. I know we're getting into more marketing speak, but I just want to put that distinction out there for everybody.
no, I think it's important. And listen, the people that are listening to this now, we're here for a reason. We want to get our marketing in order. We got to clean it up. We've got some stuff that's
Yeah.
busted. So what do we
Right.
do? We go out and we get the best. We got Justin Croxton in the house here from Propellant Media. Propellant
Yeah.
Media. So I do want to talk a little bit, Justin, about geofencing.
Yes.
Propellant Media this is what you do. You're experts in geofencing. So let me just lay it up here, easy peasy, quick T-ball here. Justin, what is geofencing?
Perfect. So geofencing is the practice it's the practice of serving ads to people based on the physical locations and the places that they go. So if you can imagine, like if you are, let's say you're a car dealership, you don't necessarily want to serve ads to everybody within the city of Atlanta. You may not even want to serve ads to just people within a certain zip code. You want to target people who are in market or close to in market looking to buy a car. And with geofencing as a great example, is we can build a virtual fence around those physical locations. So if a car dealership came to us and said, hey, where do most of your prospects go? They go to other car dealership showrooms, essentially. So within our tech stack, what we'll do is we'll build a virtual fence around many of those other competitor locations. So if it's a Honda dealership, we may build a virtual fence around, a Toyota dealership or a Nissan dealership, for example. And it's not just around like a 1 mile radius either. I'm talking about literally around the contours of the building, including the building as well as the parking lot as well. And what ends up happening is when someone walks inside of that geofence location with their mobile device, we're able to capture their mobile device ID. Essentially, it's anonymized. We don't literally have it, but we have it sort of in a cloud. And at that stage, we're able to serve ads to that person, both while they're inside of the geofence, and then for up to 30 days after they leave the geofence, effectively. And they'll typically see those ads on mobile apps and websites when they open up their phone after the fact. So if you think about Angry Birds, Words with Friends, The Weather Channel, Wall Street Journal, Huffington Post, Daily Mail, they're typically display ads or pre-roll video ads, essentially. But again, it gets back to the premise behind geofencing. Geofencing allows you to micro-target people based on the places that they go, rather than just targeting an entire zip code or an entire city or entire state for that matter. And so I have many other different use cases, but that's the one that came to mind with the practical use case of geofencing advertising.
So, I mean, in essence, what it does is it sounds like you're honing in on a very specific consumer based on a compelling event, something that happened that lets you know this person is hot to trot, right?
Exactly.
So, like, if I'm trying to get a girlfriend, I'm married, by the way, lady, sorry, but if I'm trying to get a girlfriend, I might just set up a geofence around Roxy's downtown, and like,
right. That might be one example. I'm trying to think. Have we had any clients that's asked us to do that one specifically? But to your point, if we had a restaurant that said, I'm trying to gain exposure to my restaurant, and I have these nearby apartment buildings, I have these other 5 to 10 restaurants that have a similar cuisine, and that's also within a 2-3 mile radius of my restaurant, I might build virtual fences around those other restaurants and also that apartment complexes.
yeah,
And the last thing is we can also measure the people who either saw or clicked on your ads and then came back to your physical location. So now I can tell a restaurant that, hey, these many people saw or clicked on your ads and then came back to your physical location. So at least it's not perfect, but it's giving you some sense of attribution and impact that your ad campaign is having, from a digital ad standpoint.
yeah. I mean, correlation doesn't mean causation, but I mean, if I say we showed this ad to this person, 14 days later they were in your location, I mean, that's
right.
That's pretty important. I'm curious.
Yeah.
I have so many questions, Justin. So many questions.
Yeah.
I'm reading, or I guess I'm still reading Alex Hormozy's $100 million offers.
Yeah.
And
I read that book probably like 4 or 5 times, actually.
it
Great
is
book.
so good. So good.
It's solid. It's
I don't know how he's
solid.
giving it away for like $10, but, or it's like $1 now.
Yeah. Well, I know, but he's a smart guy. I know what he's doing, but he's a smart dude.
Yeah, I'll say. So, one of the points that he makes in the book is you want to make an offer so good that people feel dumb saying no. If you're able to, do you ever go to a client and say something along the lines of, hey, you pay us this much per month, we're going to get you this many leads, or it's free? Anything like that part of your pitch campaign? I'm not saying that it has to be.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about, what are ways we can make compelling offers, and having some sort of direct KPI that shows they were here, they saw the ad, now they're in your store. Seems like a pretty compelling case.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we've had a few cases where a few clients wanted to do sort of the cost per lead, and we've done that in certain instances for certain clients, and it can be touch and go. I think we've had enough data to know kind of like which types of strategies are going to work the best. But the one thing that I always remember is like every client is different. Every single client is different. Every client has a different market. They have a different, website. They have a different offer. I do like the idea of being able to have that compelling offer that says, you know what, your risk is just so low at this juncture.
Yeah.
There's a reason for you not to say yes to this effectively.
But that's a hard thing. That's an extremely hard thing to do. I'm trying to find ways to do it in my business with outside of the context of just like 30-day guarantee or something like that,
I see what you're saying. Yeah, the thing that I appreciate about Alex's book, $100 Million Offer, is he would say that, you know what, if you have, if you sort of lay out all your different potential, offers on the table and see the permutations that's going to really make it ridiculously hard for me to say no to it, it's better to just like lay out all the different options of great offers that you can combine in a bundle or have them separated out based on your pricing infrastructure. And we've had a few clients, even now sort of taken the whole offer piece away from Propellant Media. We've had, clients that have created like ridiculously good offers. And when we've coupled the geofencing with those, it's made a huge, huge difference from an ad campaign perspective. The only thing that I'll say, and it's kind of like with Google Ads, there's some folks that, say, I just want to do Google and that's it. I don't want to do anything else. I was like, okay. But they don't think about the omni-channel, aspect of digital advertising. Like, it's not just about like this one channel, right? It's about the audience. It's always about the audience. And sometimes that audience doesn't convert, through programmatic display, or in this case, geofencing. Sometimes they don't convert through Facebook ads. Sometimes they don't convert through Snapchat or Google ads. This kind of gets to what we were talking about earlier. If you spread your wings a little bit more, focus on a little bit more of an omni-channel advertising campaign, depending on the industry, obviously, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, but more importantly, the traffic that you're generating to your site, it's having an omni-channel impact. Like someone who saw your ad from a geofencing campaign, then they do a Google search and then they see your ad again. It's like 1 + 1 = 2.5. It's not 1 + 1 = 2 kind of thing. And that's kind of where we get in with geofencing. Like geofencing could be its great standalone tactic depending on the industry, but it's even better when it's part of one's omni-channel, advertising solution set. And then I will get some clients like, car dealerships that will say, yeah, I want you to generate, 30 leads a month for us. And then we'll ask them the question, well, what are your thoughts? How have everything has been going for your TV campaign or your radio spots that you've been running? How many leads have you gotten from that? And they're like, well, we don't know because we're not able to measure, measure lead flow. And I say, got it. Well, at the very least, geofencing is part of the game plan. It's not the sole game plan, number one. But at the very least, we can still measure, walk and foot traffic to your storefront or to your location, essentially. And then, even for us at Propellant, we can even take a geofencing audience. A lot of other folks can't do this specifically. We can take a geofencing audience and then take that audience, serve those ads directly on Facebook and Instagram. Now, that has gotten really powerful for a lot of clients that we've worked with in that regard. So I know I'm talking about a number of different things. I just love this space so much. But yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I could talk for days about this, but I'll stop there.
It's great, Justin. When you talk about, the multi-channel and how important that is, it brings me back to this episode of Seinfeld where George is like, there's this girl that just doesn't want to be with him. And then every time he's around her, he just says Costanza. And then eventually she just can't help. She can't resist. She needs George.
Exactly. Okay, I need George. I need him. It's just the same thing. It's like, I can't stop seeing these guys. They're everywhere. All right, I need to see what's going on.
Right.
And it's funny you say that, actually. That's actually kind of what happened with Propellant Media. Like, I'm not trying to send people to our site, but if you went to our site or any other site that's doing a heavy dose of site retargeting, meaning someone went to your site and they leave, and then you're retargeting that person wherever they go around the internet, they start to see you so often where they're like, okay, what's going on here? Who are these guys? And then it's about offering something of value before they become a customer. Similar to kind of what Alex Hormozi talks about. And that's what we try to do. It's like we have content, we have all these other things that elevates someone's consciousness in the space of marketing. And we give away that information, at no charge. I mean, we do ask for your email address, but, that at least allows us to continue that conversation and build that relationship. And so, yeah, there's a lot of folks there that say, I just want to do a paid search. And it's not about that. The large brands that are really killing it are thinking about their omni-channel experience, as well as their website, as well as the content, as well as the one-to-one blocking and tackling from an account-based selling perspective. If you're in the B2B space, all of that matters. All of it comes into, your decision-making from a marketing execution standpoint.
It's always changing too. So the second you've actually figured a channel out, it's on to the next one.
On to the next one, man. Yeah, and again, that's why you don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's why they call it omni-channel. And so that's a really important distinction that you just made there, for sure.
Yeah, I was listening to you on another podcast, and you had mentioned that you're tired of waiting for referrals. If you're tired of waiting for referrals, then you have to take some action, and putting together a marketing plan.
Yeah.
Probably needs to happen.
It needs to happen. At the very least, for anyone that is in a B2B space or who relies on referrals, the very minimum thing that you can do is site retargeting for yourself. So anybody that's been to your site and they leave, keeping content in front of them, keeping an ad campaign in front of them, getting them back to your site. Think about all the hands that you shake and the people that you meet at conferences or networking events. You're just trying to find ways to get them to continuously think about you. And, they're not going to, think about you if you just have one call and, one call, that's all. It's got to be more than that.
How many times? I've heard different numbers. How many times do you think you need to show up for someone for them to buy?
I mean, in my opinion, I think it needs to be at least 8 to 15 times. If you even think about those folks that do a lot of cold calling and those folks that do a lot of cold email, they typically say that the 8th to 10th time is like where you get 60% of your responses, 60 to 70% of your responses. And the same thing, I mean, particularly if you're providing something of value that says, this is kind of something that's in the wheelhouse of what I need or could potentially want right now. 8 to 10 times without a doubt, for sure. And so that goes to show you that you can't just rely on one ad campaign where I generated traffic to my site. The person came once. I don't have much of value to provide other than I offer this service. I'm not really giving a lot of value per se. And then that's it. I don't rely on anything else. And I say, oh, well, the campaign didn't work out so well. Well, what value are you bringing to that person before they actually become a customer? Are you showing ads to that person after they've left your site to get them continuously thinking about you? Particularly if your average customer values are not like, you're not just making $5 a customer. I mean, let's say you're making $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 a customer. You got to think about it in that context. And that's usually what we tell folks from a marketing standpoint.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, that's what Hormozi is doing with the $1 book. If you can get someone to spend $1 and you can solve a problem, they're likely to spend 10. If you can solve that problem, they're going to spend 100 and then 1,000.
Right.
I think that especially young entrepreneurs, we have one of two problems. Either A, we're asking too much and we're just having a hard time getting anyone to say yes.
Right.
Or we're not charging enough. So every time someone says yes, it's like crap. They said yes.
Right. It's like, oh, now I got to do it. Now I got to do it. Yes.
I've been there.
Amen to that.
Yeah,
I've been there too. I think we've all been there. It's like, oh, wow, I now have to execute now. Oh, clap. But it's better than not being in that. I mean, sometimes you just put yourself in a position, again, of discomfort, but it forces you to, put a plan together to make it happen. And so I'd rather have that problem than just having nothing coming in at all.
Yeah. Same here. You ain't kidding. So, Justin, we're about to get into the rapid fire section. Before I get into the rapid fire, though, I did have one quick question that I just got to ask. Justin, what was one really surprising result that you got from a client?
Surprising results. It's a good question. We were working with a large university system. Can't say who. Well, maybe I can, but they're in Georgia. And I recall us having conversations with them around, paid search, the geofencing, just everything. We started doing over-the-top connected TV advertising that's serving ads on streaming devices. We started doing that for them initially, but there was another agency incumbent. And, we were looking at their cost per leads, and they were decent. They're like, $15, $20, really not, actually pretty good for, undergraduate institution. But I just felt like we could do better. And, as we continued down that path, we started working with them on, like putting together a campaign, particularly on the paid search and paid social side of the house, in addition to the other stuff that we were doing. Long story, we were able to get their cost per leads all the way down to $4.
Whoa.
And so when I say like $4, I really mean like a lead that entered in their first name, last name, email address, was costing the clients, $4 to $5 tops, from a cost per lead perspective. And I wasn't expecting that. I really wasn't. I mean, I assumed that we were going to get it lower, but not that low. And you never want to rest on your laurels like, oh, we're at 4. So, all right, it's nothing you can do. I don't suggest like, oh, we're at 4, so let's change everything to make it better. No, if it's good, maintain. But I was really surprised, not that we couldn't deliver, but that it got as low as it did for this large university in Georgia. And so we do a lot of work in the education space, other areas too, like retail and healthcare, but we were really surprised by that. And I was just completely floored. We still work with them, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be married to you pretty soon.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to think that, when you find that secret sauce, when you find that ad that really hits, I assume that you just start pouring more money into it, right?
It's just poor. It's just poor. Like, Google is great because, the other channels, but Google's really good because it can tell you like, what percentage of the market you're getting. And so, we knew that we were only getting like 20% of the market, and we were getting $4 or $5 cost per leads. And similar in other digital channels, we said, hey, we have an opportunity to reallocate from our omni-channel marketing budget from what's not working to what is, and then continue to see the overall cost per lead go down, leads go up based on the same ad budget. And so it's that level of proactive perspective that, I think clients, but, brands typically appreciate. And yeah, that one was a big surprise, but super thrilled, obviously, that we were able to deliver and continue to deliver in that vein.
Brilliant. Super good. We are here talking with Justin Croxton from Propellant Media. Justin, are you ready for the rapid fire section?
I think I am.
Ready.
Let's do it.
So while we're going into rapid fire, make sure you click the link below to connect with Justin. I got his LinkedIn connection and link to Propellant Media. But in the meantime, drum roll, please. Rapid fire section. Let's go. Justin, what's the scariest movie you've ever seen?
It, Pennywise.
The original or the new one?
The original. Saw it when I was 8 years old.
I still don't like clowns.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah, they're terrifying. If you could be any animal, what would you be?
I would be an eagle. One, because I'm from Philadelphia and my Eagles are 4-0 right now. But also just the experience of being able to fly, be able to see like the earth and people from that high up and have that like kind of power and freedom.
Giant
100%.
Talons.
Giant talons, pick up my fish, I'm pescatarian, living life.
Yeah, baby. Cool.
Yeah.
If you could live anywhere on earth, where would you live?
Man, I still love the United States. Man, life is hard out here. Some third world countries that's really struggling. I mean, it's tough. And so I know that's not, that's a little broad. If I were to, be a little bit more exact, I'd probably live on a beach somewhere. Doesn't matter. As long as there's not a lot of earthquakes and weather's not too bad, that's probly where I'd be.
Hey, Fort Lauderdale, South Florida, we're ready for you, Justin. When you're ready to come down.
That's where I'm coming. Exactly.
Good deal. If you were on death row, what would you order for your final meal?
Oh man, I would probably order some escargot. I would order a Wagyu steak A5 from Japan. Those are two things that I'd order.
You got me going.
There's a certain type of tuna. There's like a really good fatty tuna that's like just the best. I'd do that one too. Potatoes, some good potatoes. I'm solid. That's all I need.
Good deal. I only had a banana for breakfast, so you get me revved up over here. You get me revved up, baby.
Man, oh man.
If you could sit next to anyone on a plane, who'd you sit next to?
Oh man. Goodness gracious. That's a tough one. If I could sit next to anyone on a plane, I think I'd sit next to Oprah Winfrey. She's had some life experiences, and just a lot of the work that she's done, as a TV broadcaster. She is just amazing. And just what she's done, for community and society in general, and just everything she's given back. Just be able to pick her brain on what she's done in that vein, I thought, yeah, Oprah for sure.
Great answer. Timeless.
Yeah.
Final question here, Justin. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what would you say?
10 seconds. Oh, that is a good question. Probably you need to not worry so much about fear, deal with it, tackle it head on as often as you possibly can, because that's going to make you the best leader, both for yourself your family, and also the company that you'll lead someday.
Well, the good news, Justin, your past self listened to your future self. So keep up the good work, brother.
There you go. There you go.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, awesome. Really appreciate it, man. Appreciate that, Mark.
Boom. And that is a wrap. Thanks for listening to this episode today with Justin Croxton. Now it's up to you. You got to take the action. Start putting together a budget for time, for finances. Make sure that you've got a good offer on the back end. And if you're ready to take it to the next level, Justin's company is there to help you out. I tell you what, I feel really energized by this episode and I'm ready to take action. So I'm going to bounce. I'm going to go take action. I'm going to go start looking at my marketing campaign and how I'm going to build more traffic so I can find that secret sauce. In the meantime, thanks for subscribing. We'll catch you back here very, very soon on the After Hours Entrepreneur. Peace.